Hi there, my name is Alex, and this is the story of the time where my brother stole $10,000 from my parents. Growing up, my family wasn't exactly what you would call wealthy. Both of our parents worked full-time jobs to support my brother Danny and I. My mother worked at a bridal shop, and my father was a locksmith. When my brother was old enough, he started shadowing my dad so he could become a locksmith too, and help with the bills. Danny hated working there. He always thought it was so boring. He'd rather be hanging out with his friends than being at the shop with my dad, or helping people locked out of their apartments. One day, my dad was watching one of those storage unit shows, where they auction off unpaid and abandoned storage units, and the person who buys it gets everything inside. Sometimes, they found antiques or jewels, or even rare paintings. My dad loved those kind of shows, and he finally decided to go. He called a couple of local places to see if they were auctioning anything off, and found someone who was. He was so excited. He took the whole family along. We arrived at this huge storage facility. There, we met the guy who was selling them. The man reminded my dad that there were no refunds, even if he didn't like what was inside. Now that worried my mother, but my dad was still optimistic and enthusiastically handed the money over. The man pocketed the money, took out a huge key ring, and unlocked the unit. When it opened up, we were immediately hit with a mildewy smell. The storage unit apparently was closed up for a very long time. The unit was filled with a bunch of cardboard boxes that were all wet at the bottom. At first, it just seemed like a bunch of junk, like outdated computer monitors, broken furniture, and old manuals. And then my dad found it. Big gray safe that was tucked away in the corner. Our heads were spinning thinking of what could have been in there. It was a combination lock, so my dad had my brother help him load it into the car so he could crack it back at the shop. We dropped our mother back off at work, and our dad took us both back to the shop to help him open it. My dad pulled out a big drill-looking thing to crack it open, but the phone rang. He had to go help someone who was locked out of their home. He told us to hang out while he was gone and not touch the safe. But as soon as my dad pulled out of that parking lot, my brother started drilling a hole in the safe. I told him not to, but he told me to shut up. He got it to a point where he could fit a couple of fingers inside, so he went and got a crowbar to try and pry it open even more. He had finally got it open enough to pull out what was in it. And what we found floored us. Inside was an ordinary looking shoebox, but inside of that was a ton of cash. I had never seen so much money in my entire life. Danny told me to call my dad, tell him that we got the safe open. I went to the front of the shop and called his cell phone. He picked up and said that he was on his way back. I told him Danny got the safe open, and there was a ton of money inside. He said he'd be there right away. I went back into the other room, but Danny wasn't there, and neither was the money. I looked outside, and his car was gone too. I started to panic. I didn't know what to do. When my dad came back, I told him exactly what had happened. My dad tried calling the house to see if he was there, but no one picked up. Then he called my mom and asked if he was there. When she said no, he filled her in on what was happening. My dad and I got into the car and drove around town for a bit, looking for him. After a while, we went back home. My mom was waiting there in case he came back. She was crying because she was so worried. My dad decided to call the police. Money or not, he had to find his son. Shortly after, we heard a knock at the door. We were expecting it to be the cops, but it was actually Danny. He looked really upset with himself. He was apologizing to our parents up and down. He gave our dad the shoebox full of money back, but our parents were even more mad about him running off than taking the money. I mean, they were so worried. That didn't stop him from getting grounded. It took a while for my parents to trust him again, and even longer for him to get his car keys back. I guess greed drives people to do crazy things, but family is stronger and always comes out on top. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have a story that you'd like to share, leave it in the comment section down below.